Hi, and welcome to my presentation on YouTube as an educational tool and the 4 E's. This is the second presentation I've made. The first one was attended, but I forgot to record it. This one I'm recording, but no one is attending. So let's get to it. First of all, a land acknowledgement. I acknowledge with respect and humility that BCIT and BCC, where I work and study, are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for joining, and I'm sorry about the confusion.
No problem. Carry on. Thank you.
I'm just getting started, so I've just finished the land acknowledgement. This presentation and video is made with a Creative Commons license, Attribution 4.0 International, meaning you're free to share and adapt this work as long as you give appropriate credit and add no further restrictions. In the name of equity, diversity, and inclusion, I would like to welcome everyone. This is a safe academic environment where diverse perspectives are encouraged, and I will turn on the closed captioning for the hearing impaired and try to be as descriptive as possible with my slides for the visually impaired. I invite anyone to feel free to ask questions, make comments, or ask for clarification, but please wait until the end of the presentation to do so. So we're here today to talk about YouTube. YouTube is an American online social media and video sharing platform. It's owned by Google and is the second most visited website after Google search. YouTube has more than 2.5 billion monthly users who collectively watch more than 1 billion hours of video each day. So it is been around for a while and it's widely used, and I am no exception. This is a short video I made of myself a few years ago. I apologize in advance for the quality and the sound. This is a video of me making or heat treating a homemade knife. So we'll watch it and then I'll give it a little bit of context. So as you can see, that's a little bit of a silly video. Though I do use it in my classroom, I teach second year apprentice millwrights. So metal heat treatment and metallurgy are one of our subject matters. And that video kind of helps break down a little bit of the barrier between instructor and learner, as well as break a little bit of the tension in the room. And for the purposes of this presentation, I like to include it just because it shows that I am a YouTube user on both sides of the screen. I like to make content in my personal life and in my professional life, as well as use other people's content in my classroom and view other people's content myself. So on the agenda, we're going to talk about the 4 E's. We're going to talk about how YouTube excites adult learners, how adult learners use it, how many people use it, how often people use it, and how often that's for educational purposes. We'll look at how YouTube educates. To do so, we'll look at how it embraces the principles of andragogy, We'll look at Malcolm Knowles' 6 assumptions about adult learners through the lens of a YouTube learner. We'll look at the way YouTube engages with the learner, whether as active participants or as customers. And then we'll take a look finally at how YouTube can be used in an evaluation capacity. And then I'll field any questions that you might have. So, talking about excitement and motivation. In researching this, I came across an article from 2020 in Frontiers in Communication, which is an online journal. This was a review article by Sarah Collar and Tabia Clara Dietrich, talking about the potentials and limitations of educational videos on YouTube for the science community. And their conclusion was that YouTube is very widely used for educational reasons because of its ease of use and its accessibility. Citing the work of Chintala Patti and Dari, the article explains that YouTube's characteristics foster educational videos because they're easy to upload and share content, and that non-institutional educational videos on YouTube have become a substantial portion of students' learning processes. Now, looking at the numbers, a Pew Research poll from 2018 surveying 4,594 Americans in 2018 found that 51% of YouTube users use YouTube videos to learn new things. And when extrapolated, they found that it proves true for both regular and irregular users of the platform. And it worked out to about 35% of all US adults once users and non-users were accounted for. So for excitement and motivation, I give YouTube an A. Many people seek out learning and knowledge on YouTube, and they can do so very easily and accessibly. In examining how YouTube educates, as I mentioned off the top, we'll look at Malcolm Knowles' 6 assumptions as described in Miriam and Birma's Adult Learning, Linking Theory and Practice. Knowles' first assumption is about self-concept. He states that a deep psychological need to be perceived by others and treated as capable of taking responsibility for ourselves. Adults need to be seen not as dependent, but as self-directed. I've been there myself. I don't like to stop and ask for directions. My kids will attest to that. And this day and age, I don't really have to, because most of the time I've got this guy in my hand and I can just look up Google Maps and not have to bruise my ego a little bit by asking someone else for help. And this video here is an instructional video about fixing a dryer. I include this video because my wife used it once to actually fix our dryer. I was away and she didn't want to call a repair person. Normally in our household, because of my background as a millwright, I would be the one to take on such a repair. But she was able to find what she needed to do, not only to complete the repair, but to order the correct part and to do so safely. So she didn't have to jeopardize her self-concept. She didn't have to appear to be dependent on myself or a repair person. She was able to use self-directed learning to find what she needed to accomplish the task. So YouTube worked really well in that capacity. Knowles' second assumption is that adults accumulate a growing reservoir of experience, which is a rich resource for learning. And Miriam and Birma extrapolate from that experience is both a resource and stimulus for learning, citing the work of Robert Havinghurst, this experience leads us to these teachable moments. So in these teachable moments, YouTube can come in very handy, and you can draw upon your own experiences to direct your search. In the case of the graphic on the left, we've got a trailer having lost a wheel. That is a teachable moment, if I've ever heard of one, from a maintenance perspective anyway. And that leads into Noel's third assumption about a readiness to learn. The readiness of an adult to learn is closely related to the developmental tasks of his or her societal role. So the trailer driver has a role to maintain and repair the trailer. This teachable moments led to a readiness to learn. And the problem that led them there is what really needs to be solved. And Noel's fourth assumption talks about the immediacy of the application of knowledge, problem-centered learning. As people mature, perspective changes from the future application of knowledge to the immediacy of the application. Thus, the adult is more problem-centered than subject-centered when learning. And this video link that we have here, it comes from a bearing manufacturer, SKF, one of the largest bearing manufacturers in the world. And it shows very specifically how to perform the installation of the bearing that we would need to repair that trailer. And it doesn't have any fat on it. It cuts right to the chase about the specific problem at hand. And it's authoritative. It comes from the manufacturer of the bearing. So YouTube not only directs the user to a specific solution to a specific problem, but also is portable. It can come with us in the palm of our hand to the lab, to the garage, and it can be there to help us with our problem-centered learning. So in the first four assumptions, self-concept, experiential learning, readiness to learn, and problem-centered learning, YouTube does quite well. In Noel's fifth and sixth assumptions, some of the flaws with YouTube as an educational tool become evident. Noel's fifth assumption is that adults are mostly driven by internal motivators as opposed to external motivators. And the way this manifests itself with YouTube is that these internal motivators tend to imprint themselves on the algorithm, and one's YouTube profile can become an extension of one's self or one's personality. The graphic on the right is from a HubSpot poll of YouTube users asking why they most commonly visit YouTube. And as you can see, 65% of the reason why people would go to YouTube would be for entertainment. And only about 29% or so is about learning. So where that becomes a problem is with YouTube's algorithm. You can see in the graphic on the left a suggested video list, a watch next list on the tablet. And a 2023 article from Hootsuite by Stacy McLaughlin and Paige Cooper talks about the function of the YouTube algorithm in suggesting videos. And it takes into account both the current video and the user's watch history. So that if we were both to search the same video and watch it, each of us would get a different next suggestion. So there's a sort of built-in distraction that comes from YouTube based on the learner's own internal motivations. And to take it a step further, we can look at Noel's sixth assumption, talking about adults needing to know the reason for something, the reason for learning something. In Adult Learning by Miriam and Birma, Noel's is quoted as saying, "The first task of the facilitator is to help the learner become aware of the need to know." At the very least, facilitators can make an intellectual case for the value of learning in improving the effectiveness of the learner's performance or the quality of their lives. So, as facilitators and instructors and educators, we play a role in making the content or subject matter relevant to the learner. And YouTube, left to itself, can take on that role, and it will tend to steer the learner back to what they're more interested in. So in that way, as a learning tool, it's more effective for instructors to present their learners with a curated list of videos or a playlist, as opposed to sending them out into the wilds of YouTube to find their own information. In the worst case, YouTube can give misleading or incorrect information. The British Medical Journal in 2020 found that 1 in 4 of the most viewed YouTube videos regarding COVID-19 had misleading information in it. And in that way, we can see that left to facilitate the learning on its own, YouTube falls short at least, and at worst, it can be flat out wrong. You can teach the learner the wrong things. So for that reason, for education and andragogy, I'll give a slightly lower mark. I'll say a B-. Many positives, especially around problem-centered learning and self-direction, but some negatives about the way that the algorithm for YouTube directs and operates the platform and directs the viewer's attention. It can lead to some misleading information in the worst cases, and in the best cases, at the very least, I should say, some distraction. So YouTube can't really replace a facilitator. Now, on the point of engagement, the fourth E, how does YouTube engage adult learners? YouTube is very engaging. You can see from this statistic from Hootsuite, another article in 2023 by Stacy McLaughlin, talking about how frequently people search a tutorial or how-to video. And they say in the week that was written, February 14th, 2022, I'm sorry, not 2023, 1/3 of YouTube users, or 1/3 of internet users, had watched a tutorial video. So people are very engaged with YouTube, and YouTube is designed to be very engaging. This graphic from the same Pew Research poll I cited earlier talks about how the suggestion algorithm leads to longer and longer videos, and is more designed around keeping the viewer engaged with the platform than creating engagement based on what the user is trying to find or actively engaging the user. MIT found that 70% of the videos viewed on YouTube are actually suggested by the algorithm, not searched by users. So typically, users will search a video that they're interested in learning about, but will end up watching several more videos and eventually be led away from what they were looking at, what they were looking to find out in the first place. So I would give YouTube a C for engagement, because while it's very engaging to the user, it doesn't engage them as an active participant. It's very passive and very leading. And then finally, talking about evaluation. Now, to straight up ask the question, how is YouTube designed to evaluate or assess learning? It's not. It's not designed to do that. It's mostly passive. It's a great method of delivering information, but it doesn't have a specific function that allows it to be used for evaluation. That said, it can be used to facilitate evaluation. On the right is a link to a video that I made for PIDP 3230, and it's about documented problem solutions as an informal evaluation technique. It allowed me to express what I had learned, submit something for evaluation. So in that way, YouTube facilitated the evaluation, but didn't really perform it. And on the left, the graphic is showing a worker performing lockout tagout, which is an industrial safety procedure. And I include that because one of my colleagues at BCIT uses video sharing to evaluate his students' ability to perform this procedure. He asked them to go to various parts of our workshop and lock out various pieces of equipment while filming themselves, make a 1 or 2 minute video of them performing the task and explaining what they're doing and why. And that works quite effectively. Though he doesn't use YouTube, he uses the video sharing function on Learning Hub, which is our in-house learning software. So that gives me some hope that even in vocational training, which is traditionally more hands-on, video sharing may have a role to play in evaluation. But overall, as it's not designed for evaluation, I would give YouTube a C as an evaluation tool. So thank you very much for tracking me down. I know the original link didn't work, so I'm excited that you joined. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
I just have a question about the evaluation side, because I totally see what you're saying, not a useful tool at all. But is there a way that you can see it, evaluation being an element or something that you could use it for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, do you mean to use YouTube for evaluation, or do you mean evaluation as an element in YouTube?
Yeah, good question. I'm not even sure I'm clear on my own question about it. I think I'm thinking more in terms of how you as an instructor could use it as an evaluative tool of their learning, like if they were to produce a YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean now. And I think that's exactly how I would do it, is have them produce something that they could use YouTube just as the platform to share on. So much like my colleague gets them to film themselves performing lockout tagout, maybe something like, especially in a remote learning situation, as a trades instructor, it was a real struggle during COVID. So that way, if we've got students who are spread out or maybe still on their job site, they can perform some of the evaluative tasks, like what we would call practicals, and maybe just record themselves doing it. But really, it would just be, YouTube's role would just be the medium, just the mechanism for sharing.
Yeah, awesome. One more question about how you use it. So how often do you use your own versus other people's YouTube videos in your weekly classes?
It's a great question. So I use YouTube videos every day, and increasingly I'm using my own, but this is almost my I've been teaching almost 3 years now. So between YouTube videos that I found and vetted myself, or ones that have been made or suggested by colleagues, that kind of got me rolling with using YouTube. But more and more, as I want to make things more specific and more digestible, I've been making my own, and then I share them through Learning Hub with my students, or I just use them in my lectures in class. Actually, another way that I've used my own videos is sometimes for very small tactile tasks, it's difficult to perform demonstrations for a large group of students. So I'd gotten in the habit of just having a camera on my hands while I was talking, and then having video screens behind me. And a student suggested, hey, could you record that and then just put it on Learning Hub? And so I did that. I haven't done that in the capacity of making it public on YouTube, but that's another way where, it's a task I have to repeat every intake every 7 weeks. So kind of why not automate it and just make it public, So I could see some potential for that kind of thing, just for as a vocational or trades teacher, just being able to sort of set it and forget it. Do it once and then they can watch it. You can do a perfect version of it and edit it, and they don't see you slip on the wrench, or they don't see you, curse under your breath when it doesn't work the way you want. So I could see a lot of potential for it that way. But yeah, increasingly I'm using my own videos. Although there's some things where, like, if I want to demonstrate in pneumatics how negative pressure would work, it's just easier for me to find a rail car imploding online than it is to go facilitate that myself. So there's still always space for content that I find out there as well. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I'm just going to scroll quickly through the next 2 slides. It's the works cited and the YouTube videos that I included in here. But thanks very much for sticking with it and finding me. I appreciate it.